Hello everyone, this is Shadow Libra, and in today's video I have a FNAF 2 theory. You see, we just got the trailer for the second Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and it was interesting. It seems like the second movie is taking a lot of inspiration from the Twisted Ones, where the animatronics are roaming around outside the pizzeria and murdering people. If it really is going off of the Twisted Ones, then the toy animatronics are likely being controlled by Springtrap. However, my friend Mytani has thought of one of the coolest FNAF 2 theories I have ever heard. But before we get into this, please like the video, comment, subscribe with notifications, and join my Discord. Anyway, Mytani's theory revolves around the kids in the FNAF 2 minigame that possess the toy animatronics, and how Afton killed them. When we look at the newspapers in FNAF 1, referring to the kids who possess the classics, the papers are very clear that the incident happened at Freddy's. All the kids disappeared at Freddy's. However, that isn't made as clear with the kids in FNAF 2. Notice how in Ralph's calls he tries dismissing that the rumors have anything to do with Freddy's.
Oh, hey, before I go, I wanted to ease your mind about any rumors you might have heard lately. You know how these local stories come and go and seldom mean anything. I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment. It's just all rumor and speculation, people trying to make a buck, you know.
So while new kids go missing, it seems like there isn't 100% proof those kids went missing at Freddy's, even though we know they did, because we see their bodies in the Save Them minigame. So to understand this, let's look at the facts. 1. The kids were killed at Freddy's. 2. Even though the rumors of the kids have people thinking Freddy's is involved, since Ralph attempts to dispute it, that means there isn't 100% proof to the public that the kids were ever at Freddy's. 3. William is the night guard during the time the Save Them kids go missing. This is something hinted at throughout all of FNAF 2. We are told multiple times there is a day guard and that he was the previous night guard before Jeremy.
You're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week but complained about conditions. We switched him over to the day shift. Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual, and he's on watch from opening till close.
Later, when we get to night 5, Ralph says that the restaurant is on lockdown and no one is allowed in or out, especially any previous employees.
From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees.
Notice how uncomfortable Ralph sounds when he says a day position just became available right after saying previous employees aren't allowed in or out.
When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became available.
He then says this right after.
We're going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It was closed for years, though. I doubt we'll be able to track anybody down.
Most people think this refers to Henry, however, I don't think that makes sense. Henry is still involved with Freddy's after the missing children's incident. We see Henry is still the owner all the way up to the events of Pizzeria Simulator. If Henry already owns the current restaurant, then it shouldn't be hard to contact him. He would be at Freddy's all the time. Instead, I think Ralph is talking about the other restaurant owner, William Afton, who would have likely been kicked out of the company after the missing children's incident. If William had quit his day guard job right after the investigation started, then that would probably get the attention of the managers, so they would look into the guard they hired and find out he was likely Afton, which would explain why they want to find a way to contact William Afton during the investigation. If the day guard is Afton, that would also explain why he suddenly quits when the police start investigating, because he doesn't want to get caught. Also, one more thing, in the Save Them minigame, William wears a badge, so he is definitely the night guard before Jeremy was. William being the first night guard also explains how the new set of kids can get murdered, but there isn't any explicit proof to the public that it happens at Freddy's. If William is the guard after the pizzeria closes, and he kills the kids after the pizzeria closes, then he can easily cover his tracks, which then sparks the question of how did these kids get in the pizzeria? Most people believe these kids broke in after hours. I used to believe this too, but there isn't really any evidence to that. It's really just a way to explain why they are at the pizzeria at night. So recently, my good friend Mytani presented a new theory to me, and I absolutely love the theory. I want to make sure I give proper credit where credit is due. This is Mytani's theory. Here it is. Like I said at the start of the video, the teaser trailer for the second movie shows the toy animatronics leaving the pizzeria and murdering people.
They're out there, Mike.
Where?
Everywhere.
This, like I said, is a lot like the Twisted ones, and I think it's gotta be Afton controlling them. Animatronics just going on a murder spree screams Afton. In the survival logbook, there is a prompt written by Jeremy Fitzgerald. We know Jeremy writes this because the things mentioned in it line up perfectly with FNAF 2, but in the prompt, Jeremy says he always has this feeling that he is followed home, which further hints that the animatronics in FNAF 2 are capable of leaving the restaurant and following someone home. So what if that is how the Save Them kids end up in the pizzeria after hours? The idea here is Afton programmed the toys to leave the restaurant, interact with different kids in their homes, then the toys lure those kids to the pizzeria, where they then get killed by Afton. Then that is how the toys become possessed. Each toy would lure the kid that ends up possessing them. Another thing I thought of that I don't currently believe but still want to point out is Midnight Motorist. In 5 Laps at Freddy's, the car from Midnight Motorist is an option for a vehicle. In the car, there are 2 dice, one with an 8 and one with a 7. Dice are normally 6-sided, and these look like 6-sided die, yet they still have an 8 and a 7. That is definitely intentional. FNAF 2 takes place in 1987, and if Midnight Motorist were the same year, that would explain why a kid runs away from home, with animatronic footprints right outside his window. I assume Afton is able to influence the kids in the toys to kill people like he does with the kids in the classics, which would explain why he then moves to day shift. He wants his new family to attack night guards, but they can't do that if he is the night guard. This also explains why the animatronics are fooled by the Freddy mask. We see in both the Silver Eyes and the FNAF movie that when William wears the Spring Bonnie suit, the kids see him as part of their family. That's how William is able to order the animatronics around, because they will listen to what he says if he wears the Spring Bonnie suit. So the kids, when they see someone in a mascot suit, they think that person is part of their family. That would also explain why Charlotte is not fooled by the mask, because unlike the other kids, she isn't influenced by Afton. However, in a previous video, I had said that I was confused on why Fritz, the kid in Foxy, was also not fooled by the mask. However, then there's Withered Foxy, possessed by Fritz. With Fritz, it's pretty weird because he's fooled with the yellow rabbit costume, but not anything else. I'll admit, I don't really know the best explanation for this. However, what I think is happening is perhaps something about Fritz allows the rabbit suit to fool him, but nothing else. At the time, I had no explanation, but now I do. 2 months after I made that video, Return to the Pit came out, an interactive novel version of the Into the Pit story. In one of the endings for Return to the Pit, Oswald gets sucked into an arcade machine where he is inside of an 8-bit version of Freddy's, and he finds a room with 4 of the missing kids inside. After finding the room, the rabbit brings a 5th kid inside. While it doesn't say who the kid is, here is what we are told about him. Quote, "You realize then that the rabbit is carrying another kid in over its shoulder. You watch as the rabbit places the kid on another chair. The kid tries to run away, but the rabbit catches him as he rises from the chair and pushes him back down on it hard." The rabbit quickly places a party hat on the kid's head, and suddenly the kid sits perfectly still. The rabbit then ties the kid to the chair like the other kids had been tied up, and then leaves. End quote. Interesting how the book calls attention to Spring Bonnie being aggressive with this specific kid, a male kid as well. This is another theory that Mytani came up with that I agree with completely. Mytani suggested, what if that kid is Fritz? In the Toy Chica cutscenes, where we learn William's tactics for how he lured the kids away, Toy Chica's strategy for Pig Patch is a lot more brutal than the others.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car. Then, when he wakes up, I'll tell him that someone was trying to kidnap and kill him. I don't know, Balloon Boy maybe. And then I'll tell him that I rescued him. He'll fall for me immediately.
So it sounds like there is one kid in particular that William was just very aggressive and rough with when he killed him. The reason Mytani and I think that kid is Fritz is because it would explain why Fritz is the only one not fooled by the Freddy mask in FNAF 2. While Fritz still listens to and trusts the Yellow Rabbit like we see in both the Silver Eyes and the movie, I think he still remembers that a company mascot was aggressive with him when he got hurt. So even though he trusts the rabbit, he isn't going to trust anyone else wearing a mascot suit, which is why he still attacks whether you have the mask or not. Anyway, what role does Jeremy Fitzgerald play in the FNAF story? In the survival logbook, Mike draws random tally marks everywhere and it's never explained why. But here's a theory I have about that. If you add every tally mark together, it adds up to 39. Why is that number significant? This is why. 7 nights in FNAF 1 plus 7 nights in FNAF 2 adds up to 14, plus 6 nights in FNAF 3 adds up to 20, plus 8 nights in FNAF 4 adds up to 28, plus 5 nights in Sister Location adds up to 33, plus 6 days in Pizzeria Simulator adds up to 39. It's all the nights in FNAF 1 through 6 combined, which of course tells us Mike is the player of the first 6 games. However, Jeremy Fitzgerald doesn't have anything hinting at him being Mike. Instead, it seems like Mike is Fritz Smith because Fritz gets fired for the same reasons Mike does in FNAF 1, tampering with animatronics and odor, but the logbook having 39 tallies would show Mike has something to do with Jeremy's shifts. But what? In the gravestone ending for Pizzeria Simulator, we learn the names of the missing children: Gabriel, Jeremy, Susie, Fritz, and Cassidy. However, I always found it odd that Scott decided to give 2 of the children the same names as the FNAF 2 guards: Jeremy and Fritz. However, if Fritz Smith is Mike using a fake identity, that means he specifically ended up using the same first name as the kid who possesses Foxy, which is funny since Mike is the Foxy bully in FNAF 4. Fritz Smith is the Foxy bully. Now if we apply this logic to Jeremy, that means Jeremy, who has the same name as the kid who possesses Bonnie, could be the Bonnie bully, which would explain both why Scott chose to name the Foxy and Bonnie kids after the FNAF 2 guards, and why Mike adds Jeremy's nights in FNAF 2 to his logbook. This then leads to the question, why are Mike and Jeremy guards in FNAF 2? What is their goal? That leads to my next theory, who I think the Save Them kids are. A few months ago, I was actually featured in my friend Drazer's video, which was all about the FNAF 2 kids. Here is what I said in that video. Hello, my name is Shadow Libra, and massive thank you to Draz for having me on his channel. So, as Draz already explained, one of the kids looks a lot like BB, while this girl has a Toy Chica doll without a beak. Scott even called out the missing beak on his website back in 2015. But what about the others? One of the kids appears to be older than the rest. We see him wear a green t-shirt and blue jeans, and in a later minigame, this exact same kid is in the same outfit and appears to be wearing a Freddy mask, which if we continue the logic that each of these kids have a connection to the toys, This now connects the green shirt kid to Toy Freddy. The last two are the plush strap kid and the pigtail girl. These two can be interpreted either way, but I believe the plush strap kid is Mangle and the pigtail girl is Toy Bonnie. The plush trap kid has a Spring Bonnie finger trap, which I think could be a reference to how Mangle in FNAF 2 has two heads, and the pigtail girl has green eyes, the same color as Toy Bonnie's eyes. However, I can see the argument for plush trap kid being Toy Bonnie since her finger trap is of a rabbit character. My issue with that is there wouldn't really be anything to connect pigtail girl to Mangle at that point, other than process of elimination. One more thing is, in the new Into the Pit game, there is an arcade game called Rescue the Children, which is very similar to the name of the FNAF 2 minigame where we meet the victims who become the toys. That minigame has a voice spelling out "Save Them." The Rescue the Children minigame has you play as BB, rescuing 4 other kids, matching the number of victims in FNAF 2, and one of these victims has the pigtails and wears orange just like the pigtail girl in FNAF 4, which could also make the BB that you play as the BB kid from that minigame. Now back to you, Draz. I still believe now that the street kids are the Save Them kids, but if the Freddy bully possesses Toy Freddy, then that has some big implications. I explained earlier why I think Jeremy Fitzgerald is the Bonnie bully, but if Toy Freddy is possessed by the Freddy bully, that means he was once friends with both Jeremy and Mike, which would explain why they work in the FNAF 2 location. Jeremy and Mike have heard the rumors that the kids who went missing are related to Freddy's. Well, sorry, the kids and fully grown man who went missing. Since everyone is suspecting it has something to do with Freddy's, that is the logical place for Mike and Jeremy to investigate. It would also explain why Jeremy is followed home after all of his shifts. I think it's Toy Freddy following him home. Toy Freddy knows he recognizes Jeremy, he just doesn't remember how. Another odd thing with Jeremy is that on night 6, the restaurant is temporarily closed. Jeremy was even given a memo saying not to come to work that night.
Hello? What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while.
Yet Jeremy showed up anyway. It's really suspicious, which makes me think Jeremy is really trying to investigate the restaurant. That would be why he sneaks into the building even though he was explicitly told not to show up.
Listen, just finish your shift. It's safer than trying to leave in the middle of the night.
This is another line I think is interesting, because why would it be safer to stay in the office instead of leaving the restaurant? If the toys are capable of leaving the pizzeria, perhaps it means even if Jeremy does escape, the toys will just try to follow him outside of the pizzeria and kill him. So he's better off just finishing his shift. Eventually, Jeremy gets bit by one of the animatronics and ends up in a coma, which is when Mike takes over under the name Fritz Smith. Jeremy and Mike being friends also explains another thing that bothers me. On Mike's first ever night working in the FNAF 2 location, he knows exactly how to deal with the animatronics. Freddy mask, music box, flashlight. But how? Jeremy only knows because he got multiple phone calls telling him what to do, but we never see Mike be given any instruction. Someone who worked the night guard position would have to have given Mike that information. Ralph says both the music box and Freddy mask were added after William already switched to day shift.
You're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week, but complained about conditions. We switched him over to the day shift. So, hey, lucky you, right? Mainly he expressed concern that certain characters seemed to move around at night and even attempted to get into his office. Now, from what we know, that should be impossible. So our temporary solution is this. There's a music box over by the prize counter, and it's rigged to be wound up remotely. So just every once in a while, switch over to the prize counter video feed and wind it up for a few seconds. And as for the rest of them, we have an even easier solution. You see, there may be a minor glitch in the system, something about robots seeing you as an endoskeleton without a costume on and wanting to stuff you into a suit. So hey, we've given you an empty Freddy Fazbear head. Problem solved. You can put it on any time and leave it on for as long as you want. Eventually, anything that wandered in will wander back out.
Meaning this was a new thing when Jeremy started working here, which means Jeremy is literally the only person who knows exactly what to do when working the night shift in FNAF 2, making him the only possible person to give that information to Mike, who knows it all during his shift on night 7. Not only does Mike know exactly what to do, but he even goes as far to tamper with the animatronics AI because he knows how aggressive they are. In the end, Jeremy is now in the hospital, and Mike, I don't think he ever gets closure on what happened to the Freddy bully. However, I do think Mike going into the pizzeria on night 7 does set up him working in the FNAF 1 location, because the movie tells us Garrett's soul is inside the pizzeria with the other kids, which would explain why Mike wants to work at the FNAF 1 location. Perhaps when in FNAF 2, Mike could sense Garrett's soul in the restaurant, and he was never able to let that go. Basically, I think FNAF 2 sets up how Mike gets involved with everything else. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye everyone.